5 a.m. I'm up with a crisp Celsius energy drink. Running 12 miles today. Grab a green juice, quick change, and head to work. Meetings, workshops. One more Celsius, no slowing down. Working late, but obviously still meeting the girls for a little dancing. Celsius. Live, fit, go. Grab a cold, refreshing Celsius at your local retailer or locate now at Celsius.com.
Welcome back to the Epic Universal Podcast. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and this is the podcast where we cover the latest Universal news, rumors, and history. And as always, I'm joined by Eric Hersey, who I hope to God that basement is air-conditioned. Is it?
Yes, Jim, it is super air-conditioned. We're dealing with, some 90-degree weather here. Oh. It would be a good day to hang out in Toon Lagoon, but I don't quite have a Ripsaw Fall or anything in my backyard, unfortunately.
Yeah. Now, speaking of which, again, speaking now like a Universal Orlando veteran, when you and the family did Ripsaw or Popeye and the Bilge Rat, did you guys do the post show dryers? Do you ever see those things? The giant?
I do. The human dryers. Yeah.
Yes.
We did not. So we came prepared, and I hate having wet shoes, wet socks, really wet clothes. So I'm I have to come prepared. So we basically brought that day, I think, a change of clothes. So we had our Crocs and we had our swim trunks and we had, lightweight shirt. So we did that to kind of dry it off and then essentially changed. So the benefits of having, I guess at the time, backpacks and strollers.
Okay. I have to do that at some point because I have never done a day when I've done both Dudley Do-Right and Popeye. I mean, often it's not. Either one is down for maintenance or that sort of thing. Anytime I've been to the park, they've both not been up. And I'm not going to lie, I haven't been on Ripsaw since, I want to say I wrote it like 5 years ago. And you know that part where you dip under the sawmill? I was sitting in the back, and when we came back up, my head whipped back, and I hit the back of the ride vehicle so hard. I have lost memories of fourth grade. Okay, yeah.
Who needs fourth grade and state capitals? You don't need to know those, right?
Yeah. It was one of these things where it's like, do I want to go on this ride again and potentially lose fifth grade, even sixth grade? Those are 4 really good years of my life. All right.
No, it was good. I enjoyed Toon Lagoon, but you do have to come prepared. The last time we went, we weren't prepared, and we had to make decisions on should our kids have wet sneakers for the rest of the trip, or did we go to the gasoline alley and spend $20 on sandals and Crocs? And let's just say that the $20 Crocs and stuff, they got their money that day because we made a decision as parents to be like, yes, you can go on this, but we're not going to be talking about your blisters tomorrow. So here's the money, go buy them and so forth. But
you're good parents. Okay.
But we save monies in other ways, right, Jim?
We do. And by the way, if you are looking to save money before you go down to Orlando to visit places like again the Universal Resort or Walt Disney World, you should check out Unlocked Magic. They offer real discounts up to 12% off on theme park tickets, and with over 10 million in ticket sales, Unlock Magic is the best option for the biggest savings. So visit unlockmagic.com and save today. Ooh, that was a really smooth. Just slide right into that ad. Wow.
Just like the water rides, right
there
down.
We go. You're on fire today. Okay.
It's because it's so darn hot, Jim. That's why.
There we go. All right. Well, we are looking forward to cooler times, folks. That's in theory starting in August, heading into September, which coincidentally is when Halloween Horror Night 34 gets underway at Universal Studios Florida. And in a weird bend on this story, on the second half of today's show, we have a wonderful interview with one of the senior folks in Universal Creative, Mike Aiello. But the interesting thing is after we, in fact, what was it, like an hour after we interviewed him, he went out and broke some news in regard to Halloween Horror Night. Am I correct?
Right. I think he was at Spooky Empire and, we talked, we were talking all about Jaws because it's all about Jaws, lots of things, but we also talked a little bit about Halloween Horror Nights, and he went over to Spooky Empire and was on a panel, I believe him and one other person. And I believe they dropped the first original house that comes out, and we'll talk about that. But in general, they talked about that there is an event-wide theme. which is what, the conservatory? Did you see this, Jim?
Yeah. And again, what's interesting about this is this year, supposedly there's going to be an overarching aesthetic that's inspired by Gothic horror. Really?
Yeah, which is that's my cup of tea. This is the kind of stuff I would go for, just walking around and seeing things and not necessarily being scared. But but the guests will first enter the conservatory, which is a central thematic space expected to influence the entrance and possibly the first scare zone. So they kind of tease that a little bit. But I guess there's going to be visual cues, design elements, and they all time back to this Gothic theme. So Gothic theme, is that that's like gargoyles and stuff, right?
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. This is being presented in Universal Studios Florida, with New York Street and Hollywood Boulevard and the like. And some of this is going to be kind of interesting to have to do a Gothic overlay on. Because again, I think in your notes here, they talk about how this sort of classic horror genre relies on what? Stone walls, overgrown vines, gargoyles, and stained glass, which, okay, I've been on Hollywood Boulevard out west. Yeah, sure, they have that there.
Right. Well, I don't know. I will see how it goes. And now, since I've not been, and it was funny. When we pre-gamed with Mike, I was just like, I'm the absolute worst person to interview about anything. I haven't watched Jaws because I'm terrified of it, and I don't know much about Halloween Horror Nights yet because I haven't got to participate in it. But do they normally have a classic theme, or is this a newer thing where they actually have things tied together?
Well, to be honest, they will often have a central character. They've had their share of scary clowns and movie directors and ushers and weird old ladies. But this is kind of interesting in that going for a sort of a unified look. What's the catchphrase for this one? Never go alone? Is that
Yeah, I guess that's the early branding, like the merchandise. It's all reflecting that kind of thing. And it's like root statues and like fake stone textures and so forth. So I love a Gothic theme. I really do. It seems kind of, that's Darkmoor is Gothic, right?
This is true.
Like a theme. Maybe they took some sketches and they were like, we didn't get to put it in Darkmoor. We'll bring it over here. Maybe it's inspired.
Okay.
We'll see. We'll see. But
now, at this event, Mike and I want to say Laura.
Yeah, that's right.
Broke news on it. At least two of the original houses, right?
Well, yeah, I know they broke this one, and I don't know if the next one came out the day later, but it was El Artista.
Okay.
So this is set in a 19th century Spain and surrounds a tormented painter named Sergio Navarro. Now, he obviously, I think this is almost kind of like a Shining, right? He moves into an isolated country manor and he seeks inspiration. And then the artwork becomes alive and possesses him. So they showed some artwork. Did you get to check any of the art or some of the panels? I did see some screenshots from some of the people that were at Spooky Empire. They took some pictures, but nothing, only maybe like one or two Universal official released concept arts.
No, but I will head over there after we wrap today to check this out. And in addition to this, we have a second house, so to speak.
Yeah, I thought this one was pretty cool. It's called Hatchet and Chains. It's the Demon Bounty Hunters. So I saw this online. It was actually in the Halloween Horror Nights 33. There was a Slaughter Cinema 2 house last year. And I know we briefly talked about it, but I was so new to the game that I didn't understand what I was doing. But they must have promoted fictional B movies. And this was one of the ones that was so this is a throwback to last year as a fictional movie they made. But this is set in a cursed old town where red hot lava demons are trying to possess everyone. So that could happen right now, Jim, in my backyard. Red hot lava demons.
There we go. And it's bad when they're knocking on the back door. It's ice water. Could have some ice water.
Right. Well, this one looks really cool. The poster art looks really, really cool. And it's demons melt everything in their path and chaos, of course, erupts. So this is themed around bounty hunters battling supernatural invasion. So exactly what everybody wanted. It would make a fun movie, wouldn't it?
It would, and I love when they do this, when their mythology becomes real. So, all right, I'll look forward to exploring this. By the way, I think we should be checking Hunter's college schedule since you and I are both horror wimps.
Yeah.
We'll need him to sort of be our guide dog.
Yeah.
He goes in the house ahead, and based on how he reacts, we react.
Right. I always said to myself, I'll do the VIP tours when it's before they start doing it. I'd love to go in and see the theming, but I'm not so kind with anybody like jumping out at me. I'm not a huge fan of that, but it's going to happen, Jim. I'm going to have to do this because I can only use the excuse I haven't witnessed it, 1 or 2 seasons.
Well, okay. All right. Let's see what we can do this all. Now, speaking, we were talking about those red hot lava demons seeking ice water at the back door. Kind of interesting. Universal has supposedly decided that the people who are visiting islands might need the very same thing, right?
Right. Yeah. They converted the old former Sinbad Theater into a cool zone.
Mm-hmm.
You may ask, what is a cool zone? Why? I think it's just like a sitting area, right? It's just shaded for guests. It's not really air conditioned. There's like, some water fill up areas, so forth. But I was real interested in it, and I got really excited because obviously my couple trips that have been down there, I've heard of the Sinbad Theater and I've heard of Lost Continent, but that kind of doesn't really have anything going. You just walk kind of right through it. But now you can actually go and check it out. And Jim, how long has this been down?
I was there for the closing performance in 2018. And by the way, it's definitely, if you haven't ever been into the Sinbad Theater, it's worth going into alone just to see the physical set. I'm not going to lie, it's kind of Indiana Jones, the Epic Stunt Spectacular over at MGM on steroids. I mean, it was they built the set around all of the stunts that they wanted to do. Only what was kind of interesting about this one is it's not a question of, okay, roll that set out, roll this set in. It's all there in front of you. From the place they did the high dives out of, where they did the flame effects, boats come and go. I mean, it was really wonderful a show. And in fact, it's kind of broken my heart that it's been standing empty as long as it is. But let's face it, just in the past month or so, we've seen the How to Train Your Dragon theming coming in at least the lower part of the old Lost Continent. And it's nice to see them at least reusing this as a cool zone. But what I kept hearing was that Harry Potter was going to continue its march down the hill. Of course, that was until a certain green-skinned witch ruled the box office this past year. So, just going to be interesting to see what eventually lands in this part of the Lost Continent.
Yeah, but this is your chance to go see it. So it's open daily 11 to 4:30 and it'll remain through the end of the summer, which gives me a great excuse to go down there. I kind of reckon this for me, I'm just trying to find an excuse, Jim. That's all I'm trying to do right now.
Okay.
Is find a good reason. But I remember when Wonders of Life was open for Flower and Garden, I think, or one of those festivals over at Disney, and I got to go in it for the first and one time ever to kind of look at the little bonsai trees and the different things. And I'm like, it's rare when they open up these old buildings for people like myself who've not gone. So I'm like, this might be my only chance to go check out something. And I love that like closed, abandoned kind of structure kind of stuff. So we'll see.
All right. Just so long as they keep the lava monsters out, I'm fine.
That's it.
Okay.
Well, that's
now, speaking of monsters, we did get an update about the Universal Horror Unleashed thing that's opening in Vegas. And in fact, we're 6 weeks out now?
Right. How quick has that come about us? Like, I know we've been talking about it, but it's darn near here. I think that's in August, maybe August 14th.
There we go.
So they did release a little bit more information, and there was maybe a minute or two long trailer that you can kind of get some sneak peeks, but they're talking about the actual the monsters, the Universal monsters, and this is going to be a deal with like Van Helsing's mausoleum. And there's going to be a like themed Dracula, Mummy, and Frankenstein's lab all in there. So did you get a chance to kind of see the video? It kind of was hidden. Of all the news, this was really hidden. Did you see that little short video?
Yeah, I'm really behind this week, but I promise out ahead of our next show, folks, I will check all of this stuff out. But yeah, still very, very much looking forward to seeing how one of these that's built to be a permanent installation work. I mean, don't get me wrong. When you do the houses, when you finally head down for Halloween Horror Night 34 in Orlando, the stuff they produce is stunning. I mean, it's
Right.
sometimes 3 and 4 stories tall and hyper detailed, but at the same time, it's only built to be in there 6, 8, 10 weeks. Whereas this is permanent, and it's just sort of like, what's that going to be like? Yeah, again, very, very, very much looking forward to finally getting into what they're building in Vegas and eyeballing that to see how to compare and contrast what they do horror attractions in Orlando and California.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, being able to go on Monsters Unchained down in Epic and seeing it's like the who's who of monsters,
Mhm.
but they're all animatronics. So we think they kind of look real. In the little video, they actually showed the real one. So just imagine if you're on that ride and they were actually real jumping out to scare you. Because I saw Creature of the Black Lagoon, I saw Phantom of the Opera, Wolfman, all that in. So if you're in the mood for them to jump out and scare you, this is the place to be. If you're not in the mood for that, then go down to Epic. So reasons to go to both coasts, I guess.
There we go. There we go. And speaking of which, folks, what used to scare a lot of folks who went to Orlando was, of course, Jaws the ride. And when we get back from this break, we are going to chat with a gentleman who actually started his career with Universal as one of the skippers on that attraction. But you'll learn more about that in a second. But first, this.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks, or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Visit USAA.com/bundle.
Bundle savings are off total premium, not available in all states or in all situations. To qualify, auto policy must be active prior to property policy issue, subject to change. Restrictions apply. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
This episode is brought to you by PetSmart. Stop by for Yappy Hour with your pet at PetSmart. Save $5 on walk-in grooming services like nail trims, ear cleaning, brushing, and more. No appointment needed every weekday from 2 to 6 p.m. And while you're there, Yappy Hour includes exclusive in-store deals like 25% off pet toys. Visit services.petsmart.com/grooming to learn more.
I think you're on mute.
Workday starting to sound the same?
I think you're on mute.
Find something that sounds better for your career on LinkedIn. With LinkedIn Job Collections, you can browse curated collections by relevant industries and benefits, like flex PTO or hybrid workplaces, so you can find the right job for you. Get started at linkedin.com/jobs. Finding where you fit. LinkedIn knows how.
And we're back. Okay, folks, you're in for a treat. And by the way, thanks to Linda L at Universal Publicity, who made this possible. But I'm fortunate enough. Well, first of all, I was late to this interview, so you and Mike actually got to chat a bit. Mike Aiello, again, this gentleman from Universal Creative, and you two got to bond over your love of wrestling at Universal. Is that correct?
Yeah, funny enough, I followed him on Instagram and Twitter a couple weeks even before we had this interview lined up. I was just going through and finding interesting people, and I think it was some promotion, and I followed him, and then I noticed there was a Universal creative person that was mentioning like wrestling, WWE in it. So I went back, and of course, as you do for any interview, you kind of prep and you stalk the person's internet. And it turns out he was at WrestleMania, and he also was wearing like a Cody Rhodes shirt. So as a big wrestling fan and knowing Cody Rhodes was at the premiere of Epic and so forth. And like I said, I don't know much about Jaws. I don't know much about Halloween Horror Nights. And I'm talking to him and we're prepping and everything. I'm like, hey, you were at WrestleMania. So then he was like, yes, big wrestling fan. And it's funny. We're going to have him back on anytime when we do our epic wrestling show. He's going to come on. He says that he has a spiel he gives anybody that either bad mouths wrestling or doesn't believe it's a true art form. He says he's got it down. And I was very jazzed. And I shared with him, I said, well, I got a full-size wrestling ring in my basement. And he's like, what? And I mean that, and I was like, yes, that is my claim to craziness. Some people buy sports cars and stuff. I buy a wrestling ring. So, but no, that was fun. And then he got on, and then real business picked up when you got on, and we really got into fun conversation.
Well, and toward that end, let's not delay here, ladies and gentlemen. This is Eric and I chatting with Mike Aiello. On June 20th of this month, in fact, the day we're recording this interview, Jaws, the Steven Spielberg movie that many film fans consider to be the first true summer blockbuster, is celebrating its 50th anniversary of its initial release to theaters. And if we look ahead to 2026, well, March of next year, that's when Eric and my guest today, Mike Aiello, the Senior Director of Entertainment Creative Development at the Universal Orlando Resort, he will be celebrating his 30th year as a Universal team member. And Mike, am I right? Your first job at the resort was as a skipper on Jaws the Ride?
Yes, that is correct. Hey, Jim, it's good to hear you. Yeah, I was a Jaws skipper in 1996, 17 years old.
Holy cow. Okay. Now, that attraction, of course, closed back in January of 2012. But Universal Studios Florida is using the 50th anniversary of the release of the Steven Spielberg film as an excuse for a limited time only, now through July 6th. They're bringing back Amity Island with photo ops and food items and limited edition merch. Anyway, again, as you mentioned, you were a 17-year-old skipper, so we wanted to bring you on the show to talk about what it was like to work on Jaws the Ride back in the day. And but also worth noting here, you're also a huge fan of the original film, and kind of hoping we could talk a little bit about that Steven Spielberg movie later on in today's show.
Of course.
Okay. Well, thanks again for coming on the Epic Universal podcast today, Mike. So, as someone who actually grew up in Orlando, when did the Universal theme parks there first come on your radar?
Oh, well, actually, really early. My grandfather, Bill Gertie, he was the city inspector for the studios when it was being built.
No.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So my first time ever walking into the studios was actually while it was still under construction. I have a vivid memory in '89. Walking down Hollywood Boulevard, and it was completely empty. It was just a bunch of people in hard hats. I had one on too. And I remember we had a hamburger at Mel's Diner, but it was like out of a cooler that somebody had brought. And we sat out in front of Mel's and had a hamburger. And that was my first time ever walking into that park. And I fell in love with it ever since.
Holy cow. I didn't know. That's a great story. Now, if we jump ahead here, when did you first get into the finished park?
The year it opened. It was a couple months after the grand opening, and yeah, I was there again with my grandfather and my mom and my dad and my sister, and we all went to the park, and that was the first time getting on some of the rides and
Okay.
and seeing the shows, the entertainment, and again, I'm a huge movie buff, so being able at that time major into it being a working studio, and the idea that film and television was happening there, and there's all these cool rides and shows. Like it was like the perfect blend of everything I love at that time and still do to this day.
Got it. Okay, so we jump ahead a few years here. What made you decide in 97 to apply for a job at the park?
It was a complete summer job. I was going to be something just at the tail end of my senior year of high school, and something that kind of carried me through the summer. And I went to there was a job fair, and I walk into the fair, and right there off the bat, I see kind of a not a poster. It was like a banner that had attractions on it, and there was the Jaws logo. So naturally, because I'm a huge fan, I just wandered over there to see what that was about. And sure enough, they were looking for skippers. So I right on the spot auditioned and got hired, and then went home, told my mom I got a job for the summer. I'm going to be killing the shark 88 times a day.
Holy cow. All right. Now, speaking of which, though, again, having experienced Jaws the Ride many times myself, I was always impressed with, the skippers had to do a a lot. I mean, it was driving the boat, spieling, handling props. What, honestly, as a vet, and again, 88 times a day, what was the toughest part of the job?
Honestly, the toughest part was navigating the ride itself, because sometimes you didn't know what kind of show you were going to get when you were going round the bend. But luckily, here's the thing: by the time I was the skipper, we weren't driving the boats anymore. We just had to act like it. It wasn't like when that ride first opened. Its first less than a year in operation. The skippers actually drove those boats. They were in kind of a trench, and they had to kind of guide it within the trench. But luckily, I never had to worry about that. Honestly, it was more kind of making sure that you were adapting to what you were given out there on the ride, and that was the coolest thing about being a Jaws skipper, because it was performing, and I had never really done anything like that before. And being up in front of guests and playing the role as a skipper who is there to only give a tour of the actual spots where the film was shot and happened, and then of course something goes horribly wrong. Amity 3 goes down, and now we're there in the thick of it, battling this shark with a grenade launcher. That is, it's part of the job. You needed to have that grenade launcher just in case, and it was the best. And being that part, engaging all of those ride mechanics, because they were real. It was real things happening. But at the end of the day, too, there are people that I still am friends with to this day that we were Jaws skippers. So they're the family environment that we had kind of built. And I was there for just under 2 years, doing that ride before entertainment kind of got on my radar about performing. And but I loved every single moment doing that ride, all facets on the boat, being the greeter at the front, front of the entrance. We had to scrub the boats in the morning. Like it was we were truly skippers. I mean, truly, it really was a major building block in my career here, of just being part of something that was larger than myself and needed to have a huge team in order to be able to accomplish. It was awesome.
Okay, now speaking of which, though, you mentioned being a performer at the park. Now, was it after the first summer that you then came back and were a scare actor for Horror Nights?
Yeah, in I think that was 96 or 97. It was a Hotel Hell was the haunted house. And yes, I was a scare actor because I loved Horror Nights. So even before I got a job, my dad and I were coming to Horror Nights every single year. So that was another kind of just, hey, let me try this out and see what happens. And of course we all know where that leads, but my love for horror was pervasive. Being a scare actor, working on Jaws, I mean, like, it was literally the best time of my life,
Got it. Now, let's go jump now to a moment that probably was kind of sad. This is fall of 2011, and we learned that Jaws the Ride would be closing to make way for the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Diagon Alley. Though, that said, I do want to give Universal credit for the fact that you guys are always great about giving people advance notice about, okay, we're going to be closing this attraction, so people can get in there and say goodbye to the things they really enjoy. Whereas a certain other park up the street, a week, 10 days before they shut down Toad, they could do better. Anyway, did you yourself take part in any of the team member only activities surrounding the closing of Jaws the Ride?
Yes, I did. I unfortunately, I wasn't there for the very last boat ride. I wasn't there for that. But a group of us who were skippers at the time in 96, we had all gotten a group together to go ride. I think it may have been 2 weeks or 3 weeks before it actually closed. We had all coordinated and met up at the park and all took a boat tour around all together. So that was really, really awesome. Very, very moving. It was for me personally, it was incredibly bittersweet because I loved that attraction. I loved working at that attraction. I loved riding that attraction. And at the same time, I was also part of the concept team for for Diagon Alley, which eventually replaced that attraction. So very, very bittersweet, very mixed feelings. It was hard to pin down, the emotion I was having then.
Got it. But at the same time, it must have been a touch surreal. I've been told that sometime after that, you went over to Japan to help with the scare zones for that park's version of Halloween Horror Nights. And of course, at Universal Studios Japan in Osaka, Jaws the Ride lives on even today, right? So
it sure does.
All right. So
yes.
So what was it, right? After having mourned it, put it in the rear view, and then you go to Osaka. Oh yeah, they still have this.
No, it was great. I mean, yeah, the Jaws ride is almost a 1-for-1 of the attraction that was here in Orlando, except the fact it's in Japanese, which is also amazing to see that show in Japanese, because not only is it in a different language, but the way it was translated, the beats are exactly the same. Because I remember distinctly riding, and there's a moment when we were doing that where we had to say, "Oh no, oh no, oh no, I think it's going under the boat." And sure enough, the cadence of the dialogue was exactly the same, but in Japanese.
Oh, that is so cool. All right. Well, okay. As we mentioned, top of today's feature, out ahead of the 50th anniversary celebration of the release of Jaws, the movie, Universal Orlando Resort. I mean, you guys have been demonstrating your continued love for the Spielberg film for a while now. I mean, for example, there was the Jaws unit that just went into the mega movie parade last year or thereabouts, and that thing is huge. Is that seriously the same dimensions as the one from the film?
It's pretty close. Now it's scaled to the scaled boat on the float itself, because the boat is a little bit smaller than the actual Orca. So they are scaled relative to each other, but he's quite a presence on that float. And Jim, I got to tell you, it's in that parade and in our nighttime show for merely selfish reasons. Jim, you got to understand that. I made an oath to myself that if I have the opportunity to put Jaws in anything, I'm going to try and do it. And it's whether or not it gets approved or not. That's the ticket here.
Well, and toward that end, given everything that's going on with Little Amity, the limited time celebration of Jaws at Universal Studios Florida, do you have a favorite aspect or a food item, souvenir, or something that you made sure to get?
Oh, I definitely, when it actually went back on the shelves because it was sold out so fast, the sipper cup I bought instantly. Yeah, the Bruce the Shark holding the air tank as the actual sipper cup. I had to have that because it's just so cool looking.
Okay, now to circle back to the film Jaws, which again, celebrating, in fact, today, 50th anniversary, going out into theaters, and face it, a lot of films that were made 50 years ago don't necessarily hold up today. In fact, I don't know if you saw the story that's come out of what is it? The BFI Film on Film Festival. They found that print of Star Wars from 77 and ran it for the crowd there, and everybody's fascinated because it's the unimproved version of Star Wars. And so, you get to see that, like, the light panels that Luke and Leia are working are painted plywood, that sort of thing. I mean, it has a handmade charm to it. But at the same time, watching that now, you realize, wow, how often Lucas has upgraded and plus this. And whereas Spielberg, and face it, this is the guy who did CG dinosaurs for the original Jurassic Park in 93. He hasn't revisited Jaws. I mean, he's kept the effects in this film, 75, just the way they are. And in a weird way, that's kind of admirable, don't you think?
Oh, 100%. And let me say, I can absolutely appreciate an original print of Star Wars and watch that and appreciate that. And also, I will say Jurassic Park is both. It's CG dinosaurs and it's practical. It is both.
Yep.
That T-Rex is in multiple forms. So I think what I appreciate about Jaws, and I think why it has stood the test of time is because it does still feel very visceral. It still feels very real. But at the end of the day, and this has also been talked about anytime you're talking about Jaws, was all the challenges that were faced in the production of that film, but the masterful direction of Spielberg and that entire crew being able to adapt their long schedule that just kept extending week over week over week, but being able to adapt how they were going to create that film to lean into what they knew they had. And honestly, the film benefits from the fact that you see very little of that shark. And I think that's why it's still scary to this day, because there is so much mystery around when that shark is present. The fact that the score becomes the opening front door for that shark's presence. There is a visceral quality to that film that is, frankly, in my opinion, completely unmatched in any shark film that has come, to this day. Nothing touches it because of these qualities that some were done on purpose. Others, I think, by nature of what they had and that beautiful serendipity that ended up happening as that film was getting produced. It has stood the test of time. It is still scary to this day. My kids, when they were growing up, they watched it and they said the same thing I did when I was a kid, which was, maybe I don't go in the pool today because I'm just going to think about the fact there might be a shark in the pool. That's amazing. Like that quality that it can exude from someone is an amazing thing.
No, absolutely. I mean, I caught it opening day. In fact, the first matinee on opening day, and in a full theater. And to this day, the noise that audience made when Ben Gardner's head appeared in the hole in the boat, never forgotten it. Never forgot. Never heard an audience make that noise in my entire life.
Yeah, you and the entire world, Jim. I mean, that still is. I saw it in the theater with my son when I think he may have been 11 or 12. He'd never seen it in the theater, and the entire theater still jumped when his head comes into frame. Yeah. I mean, that is something, especially looking at the audiences today.
Yeah, that it is. Well, Mike, again, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I mean, obviously, with the 50th anniversary of Jaws, we needed to reach out to somebody who was as knowledgeable you are about this film, and more to the point, with your great tie to the attraction itself, and the fact that here you are next year, starting your 30th year at Universal. In fact, you were involved with the Epic Universe project as well. Am I correct?
I was. I did about 2 years in the concept phase of that park. So yeah, I mean, listen, I am blessed to be able to do what I get to do every day. I am thrilled that when the opportunity arises, that I am able to create content around the Jaws and that film's legacy, where it can apply in our parks and how it can apply. It is truly a gift to be able to extend the reach and I think also, if no one's ever seen Jaws and they come to this park and they see the parade, or they come to the nighttime show, or experience the seasonal event that's happening right now, if that's the doorway to let them, sit down at a TV screen and watch that film, I think we've done our job completely.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much for making the time today on behalf of Mr. Hersey. It's been great having you on the show.
Oh, I always love talking to you, and thank you. And I'll come back anytime you want, Jim. You just let me know.
Okay, we'll hold you to that, Mike.
Who says you can't be the topic of conversation for all the right reasons? The Hyundai Tucson Hybrid pairs bold presence with advanced technology and sleek style. It's everything you didn't know you needed in an SUV and then some. Okay, Hyundai. Visit HyundaiUSA.com to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Tic Tac. Summer tastes like Tic Tac. Tantalize your taste buds this sunny season with citrus adventure and orange. 2 everyday flavors that bring summer in every. Tic Tac Citrus Adventure is a yummy, vibrant medley of lemon, lime, and mandarin. And Tic Tac Orange is the perfect mix of tangy and sweet. Visit us at Tic Tac USA on social to refresh your summer with Tic Tac.
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
And that was great. I've known Mike because Universal's been nice enough to be inviting me down to press events for a couple of decades now. And it's been lovely to watch him rise up through the ranks. He's done great work at all the parks. Though that said, we do have to bring him back on, if only to do your wrestling show. That's a part of Universal Orlando history that you and I have been sort of walking around kicking the tires on. But that would be great to have him to talk about what it was like to actually see those things being shot right there on the lot.
Absolutely. No, I think there's a lot of good stories I've heard over the years, and there's still in Universal proper, there is a sign almost towards the front where you actually see wrestling. It's Impact Wrestling right there. It's like probably one of the few remnants that's still advertised there. So it'd be interesting to talk to see if he shook hands with any of the wrestling guys. So we should have him back on. He was a great interview, wonderful, very generous with his time, and it was totally fun stories. And you could tell he's one of us. If he wasn't working for Universal, he'd be going there just like one of us is a diehard.
No, I love that story about him and his grandfather, eating at Mel's Diner before there was a kitchen.
Right.
That was great. That was absolutely great. But anyway, thanks to Mr. Aiello, and thanks again to Linda to help set up the interview. And with that, folks, this week's installment of the Epic Universal Podcast comes to a close. So that said, we were just talking about potentially doing a wrestling themed show here. But if you guys have any suggestions about topics you'd like Eric and I to discuss on future shows, we'd love to hear from you. And Eric, if folks wanted to reach out with ideas, how could they get a hold of you?
You can reach me at Eric Hersey on pretty much all of the social media networks, and pretty much fast to respond. I'm on there every day. It's part of my job, so I'll be responding. Jim, where can people reach out to you with show ideas or suggestions?
Let's see. I am on X and Instagram as Jim Hill Media, and then over on Facebook is Jim Hill Media News. So feel free to reach out that way. And for now, I guess that's going to do it for this week's show. So thanks so much for listening, folks. And please stick around to find out what's coming up later on this month on the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network. Thanks for listening to today's episode. And if you like what you heard, head on over to Apple Podcasts and give us a review. This really helps get the word out about our shows. We also have some other shows on the network that you might like. Each week, we drop a brand new Disney dish with Len Testa. For animation and movie news, please listen to Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor. By the way, you can also check out Drew's other podcasts, like The Fuse, the official Mission Impossible podcast, which he does with Charles Hood. For all things Lucasfilm, why don't you subscribe to Looking at Lucasfilm with Brian Gahn? Likewise, we have I Want That Too with the lovely Lauren Hersey, our weekly podcast that features the latest merch and the stories behind that merch. And our Epic Universal Podcast takes a look at the Universal theme park. So please join Eric Hersey and I on that weekly. If you enjoy theme park history, we also host Manufacturing the Magic with Shelley and Noah Valladolid. That podcast tells the story of how we got the modern theme parks that we enjoy today. Join myself, Len Testa, and veteran Imagineer Jim Schul for our latest season of Disney Unpacked, our first ever video series exclusively for Patreon. These get released first Sunday of every month, and each month we release several exclusive podcasts to help support this video series. I want to thank everyone that supports the Jim Hill Media Network. For more information about podcasts and content, head on over to jimhillmedia.com. So that's going to do it for now, folks. Thanks again for listening, and we will catch up on the next show.